Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Jerome. Sorrow Plagues, Homecoming. That's what we're going to check out today. No context on this one. Beautiful, beautiful cover art here. Really love the pastel colors of the ocean that's reflecting the sky, which is full of those same colors, and just the really warm, darker green on the tree leaves, mixed with a little bit of that orange at the top. I don't know. It's just gorgeous. This lone tree, possibly even a lone person, off to the right of the tree, just sitting on this ledge, uh, overlooking some water. Mountains in the background. Let's get into this. Let's see what Sorrow Plagues is bringing to the table. Yeah, beautiful ambient sounds. I love that constant sound on the ride cymbal. Just very faintly in the background. Beautiful. Really interesting delayed hits. Yeah. So I think we're in 4, but I can't find a consistency to the accent pattern. And it just adds to the dreamlike state that the atmosphere is putting me in. Because I can't see what the dream's trying to tell me. There's always these abstract elements to dreams, and the drumming pattern feels like that to me. Plus, utilizing the low tom to accent is just it's a rare choice. I like how the bass kick is following the rhythmic pattern that the acoustic guitar introduced right before this section. It's interesting because I'm kind of getting the ideas of both sorrow, melancholy, maybe wistfulness, I think is what it is. It's a sadness, but it's not sad, wistful, but also acceptance. Maybe not wist. I mean, maybe a little bit of that, but nostalgia, a longing for the past. Oh, okay. This is almost turning into pure joy right here. That new lick is really bringing out the positivity I had spoken about earlier. The acceptance and turning it into something palpable. Yeah, not a full resolution there, but better than just ending the song on that previous chord. Yeah, this was wonderful. I think I think I'm just overly skeptical of special selections because I have a considerable black metal fandom in the community, and I just kind of assume that a lot of special selections are going to be black metal. but I'm kind of thinking this is, but like not, which is really interesting because we certainly had a black metal section in there. I think it was our second or third section, and it went into tremolo picking. Even I don't think it was 16th note. I think we were looking at tremolo picking. We had the harsh vocals, we had the aggressive drumming. Granted, it was a lot brighter. It was clearer than I would expect for black metal, but the thrashy components were there, and we only were in that concept for a little bit, but its influences are felt throughout the rest of the track. The tremolo picking never stops. Um, the production is clear but gritty. The guitars have a ton of fuzz and distortion on them, not enough to obscure what they're doing. I think as far as the production goes, the song is engineered that the music is first and the atmosphere, the timbre of the instruments is second, a close second for sure. The fuzziness and destruction in the guitar tones are very important to crafting the atmosphere I think they're going for, but I think it's really important to the engineer and possibly the band that the notes themselves are heard. So we have something that has a pure black metal section, but for the rest of the track is only black metal adjacent, or at least that's how I feel about it. Like I said, I might just be paranoid about black metal appearing everywhere. Um, and then everything else is really focused on atmosphere and texture. And the closest genre I can think of that is shoegaze. So, is this blackgaze? Blackened shoegaze? I don't know if I necessarily want to do this on every video where I'm like, am I right on this genre? But I do want to get better at my subgenres, and I think the best way to do it is to test myself. And well, I just happen to have 10 songs thrown in my ear every week where I can kind of test this. So, that's kind of where we've been this week. I've been asking this question a lot. So, moving on to the analysis though. I loved the opening. It was gorgeous. We had this really nice dynamic quality. Our opening was quite a bit quieter than everything else in the track. Just some really nice volume dynamics going on between our lowest and highest point. Just gorgeous atmosphere. Really beautiful stuff. And that went right along with the image of the cover art. I was kind of hoping that we had stuck around with this. I'm glad we didn't though. But at the time, I was like, okay, let's. And then the black metal comes in, right? The aggressive drums, the tremolo picking, the growls, and I'm like, oh, geez, someone got me again. Sneaking in black metal in places I don't think it should be, but it worked. It really did. I'm glad we got off of this purer black metal, the thrashier style here. It was momentary. Personally, I don't think it did anything for the song. Maybe others feel differently about that. I'm glad we got off of it though. It did have some beauty to it. Like I had mentioned, the notes themselves, the music is, I think, a very important part of the production. And I just thought it was really nice to hear the chords that they were exploring there. I think it also helps that the guitars were aiming for a higher range. We did have a lower range being filled in by a guitar and a bass, probably. I didn't really hear the bass at that section. The bass shows up later. Bass has some really nice ideas and a great tone. But at that section, I don't remember hearing the bass. There was definitely a lower end guitar filling out the low section, but then we also had these really high soaring, um, well, chords. Lots of tremolo picking, holding a note for a single, a bar, sometimes two bars. We come out of this section though, and we retain a lot of these same ideas. We have a foundation, we have the atmosphere. All of this is just holding notes out, but playing them a lot, right? Just changing notes very infrequently. And we replace the drums chill out a little bit. They get replaced with Oh no, the drums were already doing that heartbeat idea, the da dun da dun da dun da dun, that they actually borrowed from the acoustic guitar moving into that section, which I thought was really neat. I didn't hear this another time throughout the track, but we also had very little melodic elements. There was just a lot of texture and atmosphere going on in here. So rhythmic components were pretty sparse. They didn't exist enough to really be passed around like we did here. So maybe this is something they do in other tracks, and this just wasn't a great showcase of it. But I liked how it was in that situation. It was very neat to hear the guitar introduce the melody there, and then as that guitar faded out, the bass kick took over that rhythm. It's just a really nice passing off of the idea, the bass kick inheriting that rhythmic structure. But then we go into, like I said, the drums chill out a little bit. Everybody else kind of stays the same. We have our lower foundation tremolo and our higher foundation tremolo. And unexpectedly, a gorgeous sax melody. Absolutely love this. The sax playing was highly emotive, which I think is necessary for me to get into stuff like this. I feel like we've talked about it this week, but for the life of me, I can't remember what video it was where we brought this up. But when it comes to more extreme metals, there is a rigidity to everything that I'm just not a huge fan of. Oh, it must have been the Jocko video from yesterday. Well, that kind of didn't work. I think it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? I can't remember. Why did you come back, bro? I told you to go. Anyways, though, we were talking about the drums being highly dynamic, and I compared it to like black metal with alternating, bass kick and snare or blast beats, and how it's technically impressive on another level, or on the same level as something like that quick jazz idea they had going on in that song, but that the dynamic components of that drumming worked better for me than the rigid static components in more extreme metals. And that also kind of applies in the playing as well. When you have this tremolo picking, you really need a uniformity to it. Even if you're not doing the tremolo and you're going for the 16th note idea, what I kind of get out of a lot of, especially black metal, where the thrashiness is kind of overshadowed by the production, is that they're going for almost this single note. And this is how I view a lot of black metal, where in classical, I mean, there's tremolo bowing in violin, classical violin as well. But you would, play the note with these slow bows in order to get these long notes out of it. But here, they just play the note really quickly a lot and allow the production, the fuzziness, the distortion, the compression to kind of cover up all of the attacks. So you really only get the smoothness of the notes flowing into each other. And I view a lot of black metal as just whole notes being strung together, no different than just playing a note for an extended period of time, not having all these attacks within them. And it helps create I guess sort of a white noise component to the note itself, which I think is really neat in conceptually. In execution, the black metal guitaring just it still doesn't hit me. I don't know if it'll ever hit me. This is like year 3 of me getting thrown black metal at least once a week, and I just don't think it's going to be a genre for me in the end. But I do appreciate what they're going for. But the thing is that if you want to get that concept, you're playing 16 times per bar, the same exact notes, and you want to get that very legato fluidity to it, where it sounds like one long note, even though you're strumming so many times. You need a uniformity to it. Every pick, every stroke needs to be the same or similar enough, and you can't really create any expressiveness out of it. The expressiveness comes through in your tone. It comes through in uh, the statickiness, the fuzziness of it. You're expressive through timbre, but not through performance. And so when they put the sax on top of it, and the sax is extremely expressive through the performance, each note feels unique. There's different elements to it. There's swells. Sometimes he hits a note and goes in a bit light and moves into a larger volume. And sometimes the saxophone player just comes in real strong with an attack and just holds it. Or sometimes they, let a little bit of diminishing volume on it and get a nice decrescendo off of it. And it's like all these little nuanced elements that provides this very emotive performance that you just don't get with black metal. Their emotion comes from the production of it, not the performance of it. And I thought this was just a really excellent pairing, finding a way that black metal, an aspect of music that black metal just doesn't excel at. It's not saying that you can't have expressive guitar playing in black metal. It just kind of runs counter to what the core idea is of it. So to take this and say, well, what if we put an instrument on that you can't really tremolo pick on, right? You could certainly do double tonguing to get that, but you can't have it as consistent as, well, I say you can't, but there's circulatory breathing, and people like Colin Stetson certainly push that to its limit. So I assume somebody out there could do double or triple tonguing to get the speed of the tremolo picking and use circulatory breathing to keep this sax playing up for minutes at a time. But most people are not going to be able to do that. That is cream of the crop skill right there. Merging two difficult skills together like that. So, well, what if we put some expressive playing on it then? And you really allow the saxophone to fill in this gap that black metal just isn't great for. And I think it comes together in a way where you can feel the atmosphere and the performance of this melody together in a way that just really works. I don't I don't know how long I could sit here and gush about it. All the black metal I've heard, and I've heard some stuff that's worked for me, especially in the avant-garde black metal and progressive experimental stuff. I don't think anything has hit me like this moment. And I think it's because they really dug down and said, what is black metal missing in the toolbox? They opened up their composer's toolbox. I was like, oh, black metal does that, does that, does that. Oh, it doesn't do this very well. Well, how could we do that? And they really found a way to utilize the strengths of black metal with the strengths of solo woodwind playing and merge them together in a way that covers up each other's weaknesses into something that is just so effective, especially bringing in the gazy element, right? Black metal's really good at texture, but I think gaze is where the atmosphere comes from. Yeah, because black metal does really great foundational stuff. Black metal has some really cool chord progressions. I've mentioned many times Baroque music and black metal tend to go hand in hand for some reason. We get some really neat musical ideas, and it's just with this general fuzziness. But then we bring in the gazy element, and we really lock in a beautiful atmosphere. And that pretty much takes us through the rest of the track. After the sax solo is up, it's just a series of atmospheres. We don't really explore too much melody until the very end in our outro, where we have that moving, what was that, eighth note line? Eighth and 16th notes? I don't remember. Anyways, that moving, I think it was a descending idea in the guitar. That was, once again, just really gorgeous. So I think it's a good time to talk about atmosphere and emotion. I mentioned quite a few different feelings throughout this track, and I think it's interesting how now looking at the title of it again, Homecoming, I think they did a phenomenal job at capturing this. I had mentioned a type of sorrow a sadness, but I don't really think that's it. And then I landed on wistful, and I think that worked for me for a while. There is a sadness to this, but it is not a sad song. And then I landed on nostalgia, and I think that might be it. There is a longing for something going on here, possibly in the past. But there's also something really positive about the atmosphere in most of these sections as well. There's a brightness that counters the negativity, and I still read it as an accepting, right? And understanding that the events or places or people in your past are in your past, and as much as you'd like to revisit them, you can't. And accepting that little bit of pain, right? That that want to re-explore something you can't. Maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's an age, maybe it's a person, a place that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it's just even that magic of being a kid. Maybe you went to some place that seemed magical and now you're older and you know how it operates and it's less magical, but you still have that nostalgia for that place even though it's still there. And you just sort of, you accept it, you know, that this isn't something you can revisit outside of your memories. And I really like that idea, especially with Homecoming. It reminds me of Homesick, which is always funny, I think, because home is where people are at most. It's sort of mundane. At least to me, home is the point of rest when I'm not doing something else. When I'm done shopping, I return home. When I sleep, I'm at home. And I know, at least in my particular case, which isn't the same for everybody, when I work, I am at home. So, home is sort of the default state. It's really interesting, I think, being homesick, that at least to me, there's always this element of leaving the home that's exciting. And to get a desire to return to the default, to return to normalcy, I think is a really interesting concept overall. The excitement of a vacation or traveling or whatever, and then halfway through, it could even be like college life, right? When well, you don't have to be younger, but you go get a dorm on university grounds or whatever, and the first week it's like, yeah, I'm out of the house, I'm away from, whatever, not living with my parents anymore, and then it's like it takes a week, and you're like, dang, I kind of miss being at home. I always found homesickness to just be a really interesting feeling. But anyways, I absolutely love how they take this idea, this wistfulness, this nostalgia, and flip it around at the end to joy almost. And it's that feeling of having homesickness and possibly even being on the plane or train or car ride back home and feeling this building anticipation of returning to the default, of returning to the norm, of finally getting to experience what you've been waiting for, what you've had a sickness for. And at the very end of the track, it hangs on this one note. And to me, that is the ultimate anticipation. It is sitting on, maybe it's turning onto your street and seeing your house in a distance, but it's still a minute of drive away. Or maybe it's walking up to the front door and then there's a break in the song. And I was like, oh no, they're going to end it on the tension. But then they had this resolve, and that would be the opening of the door and actually returning home. And it isn't a perfect resolution. I mentioned it's only half resolved, but I think that's because, well, there's nothing special about homecoming, about coming home. It's a return to the norm. They definitely could have went for a full resolution in the idea that returning home is returning to, well, we even call it the home note or the root note. It is returning to the base, right? They could have easily done that, but I think there's also something about returning to the norm and it not being as special as you expected. You were homesick, but now that you're here, you remember that you've also been here for many, many years of your life, and well, you can't wait to get back out of it. And I think there's that bittersweet realization that they approach in that final chord that I really enjoy. So, yeah, this was just a gorgeous track right here. Took me on quite the journey emotionally, chordally, melodically. That's, man, that sax is just so good too. I wish I could remember details about it because I wonder if they kind of injected any storytelling into that melody. I don't know. I melted. I'll be honest. My brain turned off and I just fell into that sax solo. I felt it the whole time. It was just so good. So I guess now we hit some lyrics. And these lyrics are short and sweet. There are 4 lines, and it is a gorgeous little poem. I promise you will find the fortitude to face this adversity with a brave face. You will see that you can save yourself when you find yourself in that woeful place. It's all about being able to, well, I see it from a mental health angle. Anytime that you start to get into a spiral or get to a depressive state, anything that could be defined as a woeful place, these are almost like words of a mentor or a parent or even a therapist who reminds you that you are in control of your own body. You know, I've given you the tools to deal with this. I know you can do it. The next time you wind up in a mental state that isn't healthy, you have the tools to do this. It's not going to be easy. Calls it an adversity. But he says you can meet it with a brave face and you can save yourself. And there's just so much power in that line right there. You can save yourself. And it's not even just that. It's you will see that you can save yourself. You will gain a new appreciation, a new level of self-image or self-worth after you realize what you can do by yourself, not with someone's help. You know, the help has been presented to you previously. You've been given the tools, you've been given the techniques and the words of wisdom and all that, but no one else can open the door for you. You have to walk that by yourself. And when you get there, you'll see that you can do it. And it's just so empowering. And I love that. Now, this is nothing like the story that I heard in the music. Um, and I'm curious what their interpretation or a metaphor of homecoming is. I mean, I can kind of warp this into like somebody in their present state is beginning to enter a woeful place, right? And they remember these words, right? So it would be that memory. It's some of the negativity would be the mental state they're in, but also a bit of that positivity is going to be coming from this memory of this person telling them these things. But I don't think that quite works as well with my reading of the ending, which was more in a general term of homecoming. So I don't know. This is where y'all come in. Those are my thoughts on Sorrow Plagues' Homecoming. What did you think? Did you enjoy it? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything that I touched on that maybe you'd like to expand upon or you have a completely different reading of? Let me know down in the comments. Above that's a description box. In there is a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. You can find the Discord channel, ways to support the Discord server, ways to support the channel, a link to my music, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. Jerome, fantastic pick. Usually when I hear black metal, I'm like, geez, okay, let's get through this. Let's see if there's anything interesting in here. And sometimes I get surprised, but this was a treat. It really was. The black metal was used in a way that really worked for me. So thank you for this selection, for this request. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to wrap this up. Check out our final song for Base Week, our last special selection for the week, and a creator request. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.